Okay, so I know you think I'm just going to open up the microphone and rag on Jackson County Executive Frank White because that's what we have done for so long here on KCMO Talk Radio, and it has been deserved. Every single piece of criticism against Frank White has been deserved on this radio show when it comes to property taxes, handling of the teams, and all that and more. However, I will give him a little bit of credit for something that came out yesterday. Good morning, 6:05 on a Tuesday. It's great to have you here on KCMO. So this came from the Kansas City Star. Frank White, the Jackson County executive, sent Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe a letter signaling his preparedness to support a sales tax earmarked for a renovated Arrowhead Stadium. However, it comes with some significant caveats. Frank White wrote to Mike Kehoe last week that he would back a 3/8 cent sales tax extension in the county. However, only 1/3 of that would go to renovate Arrowhead Stadium. Now remember, right now, there is a 3/8 cent sales tax that is split between the Royals and the Chiefs. So if you're only going to give the Chiefs 1/3 of 3/8, that is less than they're currently getting. What does Frank White want to do with the other 2/3 of this 3/8 cent sales tax? He would like to use 1/3 of it to upgrade the downtown Jackson County Courthouse and the juvenile rehabilitation facility, 1/3 for capital improvements at University Health, county-owned hospitals in Kansas City, and then 1/3 for upgrades to Arrowhead Stadium. Now, I will say this in Frank's defense. With the amount of money that these teams are now able to get their hands on, courtesy of the state of Missouri, and what the state of Missouri just passed in its special session, this is all newfound money for the teams. So the teams should be able to do plenty of what they want to do while backing off some of the local sales tax revenues that they've been getting for the last 25 years from Jackson County residents. Frank is not wrong in trying to cut that tax to the teams because of what the state just ponied up on its end. I'll give him that. That's it, but I'll give him that. But then there's the other side. And the other side is that if you want sales tax revenues for a downtown courthouse and for capital improvements at University Health, put that crap on the ballot by itself, okay? Ask people whether or not they want their sales tax dollars to go to support that. Because here's the politics of this, and this is why every time a sales tax comes up, whether it's in a deep blue district or a deep red district, it usually passes because what they do is they introduce a sales tax for something that people like. And then once that thing is paid off, they either roll it forward for maintenance costs on fill-in-the-blank project, or they just spin the sales tax renewal for something else the government wants. And they always brand it and bill it as no new taxes. Technically, it's not a new tax. It's not an additional tax. It doesn't cost you more money. But this is quintessential government. And it happened when I was working in Northwest Oklahoma. I mean, you're talking about 90-10 Republican-Democrat breakdown. Heck, now with Trump, I was there 15 years ago now. In the Trump era, I mean, that might be a 98-2 part of the country. It's ridiculous how red that part of the country is. They would have the same questions pop up, sales tax renewals, and people would pass it. So if Frank wants to put something on the ballot for improvements to the Jackson County Courthouse, he should do that on his own time and not use the Chiefs to try to pass whatever kind of improvements he wants to the Jackson County Courthouse. How much money has Jackson County fleeced from its taxpayers in recent years? The audacity to say we need some upgrades to the courthouse and we're going to use the Chiefs to do it? It's clear what he's doing here. You don't have to be a Mensa member to figure this stuff out. He's trying to get some things that he wants politically and use the Chiefs to basically get it done. And sorry, but the guy has not been a good enough partner here, at least not publicly and frontward facing in the last 12 to 15 months to justify that. The Chiefs should tell him to pound sand. And you know what the Chiefs should do? The Chiefs today should put out a statement saying, we want to get the Jackson County resident a tax cut. We are interested in cutting this 3/8 cent sales tax because we know the state of Missouri has stepped up. We appreciate them doing that. And we know how painful it's been for the average Jackson County resident, our base fan. We want to help them out. But this plan from Frank is a non-starter, and we're not going along with it. But we are willing to take half of 3/8 of a cent, and that's the same monies we were getting, and we're happy to put that on the ballot and get you a small sales tax cut. That's what the Chiefs should do today, because somebody leaked this letter to the Kansas City Star. That's how this stuff works. It got leaked by somebody, or somebody maybe tipped off the Kansas City Star and said, hey, you've got to figure out how to get your hands on this letter, because the article in the Star says, in a letter obtained by the Star through an open records request. So here's how this works to take you behind the scenes. How this works is that somebody tipped off the Star to this and said, hey, you should put in an open records request for this potential letter that may exist. I'm not saying it guarantees its existence, wink, wink, nod, nod, but you should do some fishing and see if there's an open records request on this letter that Frank White wrote to Mike Kehoe. That's how the game is played. So somebody tipped off the Star on this and said, hey, get your hands on it. And there's a reason that Frank would want this out there, I believe, because he's trying to set the tone for, hey, we're going to do things with this other than just sports stadiums. And he may have a point on that, but you do it on your own time. And if there's somebody who has no juice right now in saying we have to dump millions of dollars to upgrade the downtown courthouse and we have to update and improve university health, it's Frank White. He knows he can't get this passed without the Kansas City Chiefs leading the way on the ballot. He knows that full and well. That's why he's trying to basically piggyback off of them, and he wants this to be the route to go down. 913-408-7957. And, of course, the other overriding part of this, it's what's going on with his recall.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, as we sit here today, it's supposed to be Tuesday, August 26th. But I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't put those odds at much better than 50-50 that we find ourselves going to the polls on August 26th to vote on this recall. I mean, at best right now, I'd put it at 50-50, John.
The letter thing takes me by surprise. This is like a guy failing class going, hey, I did some extra credit, you know. I'm like, where's this letter come from all of a sudden, you know?
I think it comes from his
I can understand his motivation, but I'm like, is this how we do business?
I
Write
think
a letter to the governor?
It's coming from his general counsel.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's coming from his awful advisors who have really done a bad job in leading him throughout this entire process. But you know what? He's got people who I think are in his inner circle, who he trusts, and they have done nothing but largely screw him every step of the way. And that's the only thing I can come to a conclusion on.
Interesting.
Because nothing else makes sense. I mean, the guy's coaching baseball for the Monarchs. When did he write the letter? I mean, in between the first and second inning? I mean, seventh inning stretch, take me out to the ball game. Frank's writing letters to Mike Kehoe. What are we doing here? Take me out to... Oh, I better wrap this letter up.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for your attention to this matter, says Frank White. You know what? If Frank White ended his letter like that to Mike Kehoe, I'll give him some props. I will. But that's it. That's all I got for you. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now, on the other side of the state line, Laura Kelly had a little puff piece in the New York Times. Did you see that? Oh, this is a doozy. Laura Kelly, New York Times puff piece, and it comes out the same day that the Panasonic plant opens up. We'll get you the details on it next on KCMO. Hey, a big puff piece for Kansas Governor Laura Kelly in the New York Times yesterday. Headlined, "Governors should be the face of the Democratic Party." That was this probably, 1,500-word piece, give or take, in the New York Times that dropped yesterday. And they write here about Laura Kelly in a very glowing piece. Laura Kelly, the Democratic governor of Kansas, jump-started a recent Tuesday afternoon with a crash course in heavy-duty tires for tractors, for semis, for Humvees, tires that top 6 feet and weigh 13,000 pounds. She's one of us there, John. That's how they start the piece off.
Of course, with tires, as you do from the middle of the road, right?
Well done there. Oh, that's great. And they go on the note here that Laura Kelly, with the fact that she won back in 2018, 2 terms as Kansas governor in a state that Trump won by 16 points, really has absolutely no national footprint. Now, she is the head of the Democratic Governors Association. She does run that. But she's never on cable news. Of course, she really isn't known all that well by anybody outside of the state of Kansas. And, Missourians obviously will know her, but that's about it here in the Kansas City area. They write she's not a national name like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Chuck Schumer. She's never been a regular on the political media circuit like Adam Schiff and Pete Buttigieg. Sweet Pete and Pencil Neck. Nobody buzzes about her as a presidential possibility, as what happens with Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer. Even as the current head of the Democratic Governors Association, she flies largely under the radar. The premise of this piece for Laura Kelly and for the New York Times was to say in a very long-winded, roundabout way, we've got to get out of the crazy lane. Now, I know some of you right now are sitting there and you are saying, Laura Kelly's crazy. She's done this and that, and she's been way to the left on some of these issues. Abortion, the transgender issue, boys and girls sports. You're right about that. But it's all about public perception. And there is a public perception that because of how left the extreme of the Democrat Party has become, Laura Kelly can get away with the notion that she is more of a middle-of-the-road candidate. Now, I think if you're properly telling the story here on Laura Kelly winning 2 terms as Kansas governor, there's a lot more than like she's cracked the code on how to win as a Democrat statewide in R plus 15 states. Because Republicans screwed themselves here as well. Republicans hurt themselves. We know that she won in 2018 in large part due to the Sam Brownback failed experiment. They didn't cut enough with the Brownback tax plan. That was a major issue. And then, of course, Brownback leaves. Collier comes in. He loses a very close primary to Chris Kobach where they were counting votes for days. There's a quick turnaround time for Kobach. And Kobach, as much as I love him, he was in that moment a weak candidate, didn't have a lot of money, was never the best fundraiser, and there were issues for that campaign that led to Laura Kelly winning. Fast forward 4 years. It's always good to be an incumbent. Derek Schmidt gets basically anointed the GOP pick on the governor's race. And then he tries to run a Trump-ish campaign, run up the numbers in rural areas, and basically give up Johnson County. And it was just bad math. You can't get blown out in Johnson County by 20 points and make it up in rural counties right now. You just can't do it. The numbers aren't there, especially when more of those voters are motivated by Trump than they are, say, the GOP. It was a strategy that didn't work. And then, of course, you got the outlier that is Gomer Pyle up in Northeast Kansas, who ran as an independent and peeled off a bunch of more conservative votes. And that also played a factor back in 2022. So if you're telling the story properly on Laura Kelly winning 2 terms, listen, she deserves credit. She has won 2 races statewide as a Democrat in a red state. She deserves credit for that. But there's always more under the surface than, say, the New York Times is trying to scratch here. But they go on to note that basically the party needs to look to some of its Midwest governors that are Democrats. Maybe an Andy Beshear in Kentucky. Not that Laura Kelly's a presidential figure. I mean, heck, she's in her mid-70s. And I know that some of you may say, well, Trump or Biden. Yeah, she's not going to be a presidential figure. She does not have the charisma. She's a very nice lady, it seems like. I've only talked to her on the show a couple of times. But she is not presidential material, and I say that with all due respect. But looking at some of those Midwest governors, I mean, they kind of tried that with Tiananmen Tim Walz up there to our north in Minnesota, and it backfired on them bigly. But at least they're having the conversation on trying to at least figure out what to do to get people between California and New York to vote for their party. At least I give them that level of self-awareness in the New York Times, where they can look at that and they consider themselves, we've got a problem. We probably need to fix this problem. Maybe Laura Kelly in Kansas can help us crack the code. Now, I would tell them that they just need to not be nuts to crack the code, right? Like stuff that we all used to agree on. Have strong borders, not support illegal immigration, admit that boys and girls should be playing their own sports based on their biology. Like, this is all stuff that we used to just be on the same page about. And unfortunately, that's not the case anymore in this country. We'd be better off as a country if we agreed on those core principles. And then we just debated, like, should the top tax rate be 39.5% or 36%? We'd be much better off. But that's not the climate that we find ourselves in right now. And that's largely because of the political party that Laura Kelly identifies with. Not because, as much as they try to brand Trump to be the radical, like Trump's policies are more or less, when you actually look at them, right of center to conservative policies. And there's many Democrats 30 years ago who would have agreed with the bulk of these policies and would have been on board with a bunch of these policies. So you tell me, which party has dramatically shifted then on this front, right? Trump has had in large part the good fortune of running for president at a time when his opponents have gone insane on their policy. And in a zero-sum game of politics where you can vote for one party or the other, that is a big benefit when you're Trump and you're at the top of the ticket at a time like the 2020s right now. That has been a huge boost for him. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, Tucker Carlson took a big swipe at Dan Bongino, and I totally disagree. Coming up next. 6:35, good morning. It is great to have you here on KCMO. I've got to defend an old teammate here on 95.7. That would be Dan Bongino, who, of course, is off to the Trump administration where he is working in the FBI. And Dan Bongino made a lot of headlines late last week when he was, according to reports, threatening to quit after he was upset with how Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, handled the Epstein files. Well, this was the big, conversation on Friday. Is Dan Bongino going to leave? Is he going to stay with the Trump administration? Well, according to Donald Trump, they talked over the weekend, and Dan is fine.
I think so. I did. I spoke to him today. Dan Bongino, very good guy. I've known him a long time. I've done his show many, many times. And he sounded terrific, actually. No, I think he's in good shape.
He sounded terrific. I think he's in good shape. This despite the fact that media reports late last week said that Bongino was going to potentially quit. Now, I'm going to have Dan's back here based on something that was said about him yesterday by Tucker Carlson. But I will say I didn't like that story leaking last week that Dan and Kash Patel were potentially going to quit as Trump is touring the ruins of Kerrville, Texas, and meeting people who lost literally everything, including loved ones. That news cycle on Friday was overtaken by this drama in the FBI. And the game is played as such where these people leak this stuff. That's how the game goes. And I thought that was wholly unfair to the president at a time when he was touring Texas. He was first off helping and being a shoulder to lean on for some of these people in that part of the country where obviously he has a tremendous amount of support. And not that it should matter, but that was just the icing on the cake. These were Americans who were struggling in a time of need. The president was there visiting them, and that storyline got stomped on by Dan Bongino and Kash Patel might quit the FBI. I didn't think that was fair to President Trump. That being said, I also will say about Dan that what he has done, what Dan Bongino has decided to do, which is give up a very lucrative and booming media career as a radio host, which included here on KCMO, and then also as a podcaster, to go work as the deputy director of the FBI, is something 99% of people in his shoes would not have done. Dan took a massive pay cut for this job. Let's be very clear. Okay? He's probably making a couple $100,000, which in Washington, D.C. is maybe like making, I don't know, $35,000 in Kansas City. Like, you get the point, right? Just cost of living. You got to go to Washington, D.C., which just stinks in and of itself. It's not nearly as much money as you would perceive it to be because of cost of living. And Dan was making a fortune doing this. And I'll tell you right now, this is a lot more fun than being the deputy director of the FBI. But to Dan's credit, he felt this would be a way to give back to his country, put his money where his mouth is, serve his country, and actually do something about the problems that he perceives exist in the country right now. That's admirable. Now, of course, when you're in a bureaucracy like the FBI, you can't just do this like when you run your own podcast business, right? It's just a different beast. And I can't imagine how frustrating that is. It's one of the reasons that people who actually want to move fast and do things and break things, and if they're wrong, just kind of move on and learn from their mistakes, they don't fit well in government because government doesn't operate like that. But I thought that when I heard this from Tucker Carlson, he was on a Turning Point USA podcast, ripping on Dan Bongino and saying that the debacle of the Epstein file release was going to hurt Dan Bongino's career. I thought that was entirely unfair and also just flat out wrong.
And all of a sudden, everybody thinks you're covering up Epstein's crimes. And it kind of wrecks Dan's career. Like, he can't go back. It's going to be very hard at this point. I mean, things may change, but as of today, pretty hard for Dan to go back to his podcast audience and be like, I'm telling you the truth, when they all think that he's covering up for Epstein. Who did that? Pam Bondi did that. And I don't know that she did it on purpose. I'm assuming not. I don't think she's a mean person. I've never gotten that sense. But for whatever reason, she went out there and said things that were not true, that she could not back up.
Dan Bongino's career is not over when he goes back to media because of this. It's not. Dan is one piece in a bloated FBI. And yes, he has some juice as the deputy director, but he's one piece. That's it. Dan is going to be absolutely fine if he elects to go back to a media career after he's done serving his country in the Trump administration. You know why? Because he's damn entertaining. He's a compelling talent, and he does a really good job on the air and communicating with people. Dan will be absolutely fine, John.
Well, his reputation precedes him already, his service, right? So he was already somewhat before he decided to go onto the radio.
Yes.
And be a podcaster. Gee, a podcaster has a wrong take. There's a hot story.
Yep.
No, I mean, it does nothing to damage his career.
No way.
Right.
And, you know, to think that, well, how is Dan going to go back and say, I'm telling you the truth? Well, here's the thing. Half the people right now in that space, including the guy who was just commenting on Bongino, not exactly always telling the truth. And I like both of these guys, but come on. It's much easier to sit on the sidelines and do the, well, you know, I'm going to try to connect these dots and lead you to believe something that you want to be true is definitely true, than actually being inside of the FBI as the deputy director, having to play by those sets of rules, and then realize, boy, there's more than meets the eye here, John.
Hashtag my truth.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yes. It's popular on the left, but you know what? There's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah, it goes around.
A lot of that on the right, too, sometimes. Got to admit. And I just don't know why Tucker would do this. I mean, Tucker's made it very clear that he would never run for office. He'd never be president. He'd never do anything like this. So it's easy to sit there with a microphone and just basically say whatever. Dan actually put his freaking money where his mouth is, literally and figuratively. He's given up millions of dollars for at least a couple of years to do this job. It's thankless. It's frankly probably filled with bureaucratic nonsense. He's doing it, though. And for Tucker to cheap shots like that, I thought was so out of line. Because here's one guy who's actually doing something that he was asked to do by his country. And the rest of us have not done that. I mean, no one's called me, and I'm not expecting that call anytime soon. But no one's called me and asked me to do it. Tucker actually might have been called at some point to be press secretary or something like that. But he'd be good at that. I will give him that. But he probably turned it down because guess what? He's got a great life. He doesn't need it. On the text line, Pete, Tucker Carlson is becoming a douchebag. I like how he weaves in and out of his statements. But it's completely unfair to Bongino. Yeah, I agree. It is. And as much as, this Epstein story has obviously garnered a lot of attention and the emotions are high and the opinions are high on both sides, one guy who does not deserve the credibility hit right now is Dan Bongino. I got to defend Quentin Lucas on this one here. Fox 4 in Kansas City wrote this piece. Malik Jackson, Mark's boy. Mark loves Malik Jackson.
My favorite guy in news.
Writes a piece, does a piece here. Now, remember, Malik and Quentin have some beef going back a couple of months over Quentin going overseas and Malik not getting the scoop. It was something to do with that, right? It was about overseas travel and whatnot. So they had that little standoff outside of City Hall, as I recall.
Yeah, Malik is on Mayor Q.
Yeah, oh yeah. There's no love lost there. So this was right up his alley. Frustration is mounting behind the scenes as negotiations over the Royals' next home continues to stall. Multiple sources close to the situation tell Fox 4 they're growing increasingly upset with Mayor Lucas and Jackson County Executive Frank White, accusing both of failing to lead at a critical moment. Fox 4 spoke with 4 well-placed sources, including individuals at the city-state levels, some directly involved in negotiations with both the Royals and the Chiefs. One source did not mince words. Quote, "There's been a complete lack of leadership and vision from the beginning. This is all solvable, but nobody is steering the ship. If the Royals leave Kansas City, that is on Quentin Lucas." No, it's not. It is not on Quentin Lucas if the Royals leave Kansas City. It will be more so on Frank White if the Royals leave Kansas City. And frankly, it'll be more so on the Royals if the Royals leave Kansas City.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Come on now. The Royals had a spot that actually was, from a location perspective, a very good spot, the old Kansas City Star building. But they rolled it out too late. They didn't have their ducks in a row. They rushed it to a vote. They were arrogant in how they handled it, and the voters told them to pound sand. That was actually a really good location. Tie into T-Mobile, tie into Power and Light, potentially put that park over the top there, and you connect that entire part of downtown. That was screwed up more so by the Royals than it was by the city. Quentin kind of did push it out there late, in large part because the development company, Cordish, which builds all the One Lights and owns Power and Light and is losing money on it, they were the ones who were like, please don't go to East Village. We don't want a competing entertainment district in this town. Come down to the crossroads. It'll work out better for everybody. And the Royals were like, okay, that sounds good. But the Royals were the ones who had to have some foresight to realize, first off, we haven't bought any of these buildings. We haven't negotiated any deals. People are going to be blindsided. And this is probably something we need to roll out a little bit slower. They rushed it to a vote, and it came back to bite them.
They should have spent the last 2 years building that up.
Yes, if they bought up good faith in the community, downtown Crossroads area, and sold this to the people, I think it would have gone much better for them. That's on the Royals. That's not on Quinton Lucas. Heck, that's not even on Frank White. That's on the team. That's who it's on. And then when you think about where Quinton Lucas falls in the pecking order, I mean, in the end, what is this guy going to do? The tax is handled by the county. The sports commission is handled by the county. This is much more of a county deal than it's ever been a city deal. In fact, I would argue Quinton Lucas is actually trying to figure out a way to keep this team in Kansas City when there's absolutely nothing to suggest Frank White's doing anything, including this letter that he rolled out to Governor Kehoe that was reported on yesterday in the Kansas City Star, saying he will support a renovation at Arrowhead with a 3/8 cent sales tax extension, but a third of it goes to a downtown courthouse renovation, a third of it goes to University Health, and a third of it goes to Arrowhead. He left the Royals out of it. He didn't even have the Royals as part of that 3/8 cent sales tax. You tell me who wants the Royals out of Kansas City. It's very apparent that Frank White does. Hey, this is whoever gave that little sourced quote to Malik Jackson was either Frank White, his wife, or his chief of staff. I mean, it's one of those three, because nobody in their right mind could say that Quinton Lucas would be the reason that the Royals leave Kansas City. I mean, with the shenanigans he's trying to pull, he might be the only reason they stay in Kansas City, if we're being totally fair. If you wanted the Fed to cut rates, it's not happening. We've got new inflation numbers that just dropped here in the last few minutes, and they came in. June inflation rises to 2.7%. Expectations were for 2.6%. Last month, we got a 2.4% reading after it was down to 2.3% in the month of April. So that is 2 straight months of rising inflation, above expectations also for the first time in 5 months. So you're not going to get a rate cut from Jerome Powell and the Fed. We'll see what President Trump says about this whenever he posts something on Truth Social here, I would imagine, in the next, few minutes, couple of hours, who knows when. You know he's going to say something about it, though. But we now have inflation rising for 2 straight months to its highest level since February. There's also a very strong labor market right now, which has beat expectations for 3 straight months. And then, of course, we've got the tariffs lingering out there as well, set to go into effect on August 1st. Jerome Powell is not cutting rates in that environment, and nor should he. I'm not here to be a Jerome Powell fanboy, but now would be the worst time to cut interest rates based on what's going on, where you've got a strong labor market and you've got tax cuts also being extended, and in many cases actually being cut further for small businesses and for middle-class individuals, right? So if you suddenly go out there now and you start cutting rates, I mean, inflation, I'm not going to say it's going to go back to where it was in 21. That's probably not going to happen, but it's certainly not going to subside. And still, the biggest thing that's crushing regular people is inflation. And the compounding inflation from the last half a decade. You've got to get this number to as close to 2% consistently as you can. And, you might say, well, 2.7 is kind of close. I mean, I guess it's also off by nearly 50% if you want to do the math on it. So Powell was wrong in 21. He was wrong last year to try to cut rates to maybe help Kamala Harris. But it doesn't mean that he's wrong right now to stand pat. Even if he does have some personal beef with Donald Trump, it would not be the right economic move at this point to sit there and cut the interest rates after these inflation numbers come in hotter than expected. So that's where we're at right now, and we'll have to see, of course, what the reaction is from the White House. I got to imagine that's going to be coming here before long. 913-408-7957. That's how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. So I wanted to get to this. Speaking of the cost of things, did you see the cost to get into the World Cup? Woo! Man, I don't know if we're going as a trio here, fellas. Unless Keatsman's buying, I don't know if we're going based on these prices.
I hate to break it, 20. So, I'm out.
I don't know if 20 covers your parking, John.
Don't know. No, it doesn't.
The single match prices for games in Kansas City range from $1,350 to $2,050. The cost for a match series in Kansas City ranges from $9,375 to $21,200 for one person.
Are those the hospitality packages or just the tickets?
According to the Kansas City Star piece here, single game tickets will go on sale via a lottery, but FIFA announced Monday they put the hospitality packages on sale. Single match series, or the Follow My Team series, where you can follow your team, and that is also done via dynamic pricing. Germany's $8,500 a pop, Italy is $7,200 a pop, and the big teams, Argentina, Brazil, and the U.S., will not have a Follow My Team package. So, yes, these are obviously expensive, and they are based on the hospitality prices, but that alone still makes me sit there and say, what do you think the regular tickets are still going to be?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if that's what they're trying to get on some of this stuff, it is not going to be a cheap ticket. You're not getting a $50 ticket into this thing, John. There's no way.
Boomer confused. Dude, I saw Kiss for $5, the Eagles for $10. This stuff is out of my range. 300, 500. And you don't even get a ticket.
You saw Kiss for $5?
$5.
Where was that and when?
Municipal Auditorium, July 76.
Oh, wow. Look at that. He remembers it. Couldn't tell you what he ate for lunch 2 days ago, but he knows that. That's great. I knew you'd have that one in your back pocket.
Touche.
Oh, man. This is crazy. So, you know, the other part of this, too, the other layer here is like when the Chiefs talk about, hey, if we go to Kansas, we might have Final Fours and we might have Super Bowls. Just like the World Cup, this is not for the average fan. And the notion that there's going to be this windfall of business for small businesses around Kansas City, maybe if you're in the right business in the right location, maybe you would fall under that umbrella. But I'm telling you, these major events, World Cups, Final Fours, Super Bowls, they never have been for the average fan. And over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, each year that passes, they become less and less attainable for the average fan. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, when they talk about going to Kansas to say, hey, we will have major events, Final Four, Super Bowls, huge concerts, whatever it might be, that's all well and good. But the average middle-class resident in this community, it's not going to be attainable for them. So, just be honest about that. And don't sell the whole song and dance of like, well, your small business might get a big uptick because we bring these things to Kansas City. Maybe if you're in the right business, and maybe if you're in the right location. That's it. A lot of people aren't going to feel it one bit and can't afford to go to this stuff anyway.
As an average fan, I would like to go to one of the fan fests, though. Those are attainable for me.
What fan fest? Oh, like a Final Four fan fest?
Yeah, or Super Bowl fan fest or media day, stuff like that.
You know, Mark, I'll book you a round-trip ticket to San Antonio one year, and you can go to your own fan fest on your own time, okay?
Buy, sell, or hold. Fan fest is the participation trophy of the sporting event.
Mark, who wants a fan fest? Come on, man.
I mean, it's just a part of the atmosphere.
You've been to one, you've been to all of them, all right?
Yeah.
Nothing more overrated than a fan fest. I mean, the diehard Mark Van Sickle who wears sports gear every day will like the fan fest. I'll say that much.
Sure.
But that's not most people. No offense. Got to give Barack Obama some credit. Didn't see that one coming when the week started, but here we are. CNN obtained some quotes from Barack Obama at a big fundraiser that he did over the weekend ahead of some elections that are happening this year in New Jersey and Virginia. Those two states have governor's races this year, and Obama was helping raise money for the Democrat in the New Jersey governor's race. And here's what Obama said according to excerpts obtained by CNN. Quote, and this was really about the Democratic Party. They've got no power right now. There's really no direction. They're being pulled to the left. There's no one that's really in charge. I mean, Obama's probably the guy that you would say is still the face and the franchise of the party, but it's also wearing thin. You know, it's feeling tired with Obama in many respects. So Obama said, per CNN, quote, I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen up. Now, he's right. That being said, it is difficult to self-reflect in that way, look in the mirror, and just basically toughen up when, you know, the whole perception is you're losing because your country is racist and sexist and misogynist and the whole thing, right? If that's how you view your fellow American who doesn't vote for you, man, they're just sexist and racist and the whole deal, then of course you're going to just navel gaze and whine and crawl into the fetal position. So the one thing Obama's getting wrong is how they got to this point. And by the way, he's the guy who started all that. Let's be very clear. He could have been this historic guy who breaks all the racial barriers, and there was a moment in 2008, 2009 when he could have been that guy. By the time we got to re-election in 2012, all that was out the window, and instead he leaned in to the racial component of American politics. And it got worse starting in 2012. When you look at a lot of the data that Gallup and some of the other polling outfits do, they will show you that starting in 2012, after really an improvement in race relations for the better part of 30, 40 years, they started to get worse in 2012. Obama was a big catalyst for all of that. So he's right in what he's saying here, but he's rewriting history as the guy who brought the party to the point where they can now just point at people who don't vote for them and call them names. The problem is, I think it's even gotten worse than he would have imagined. So Obama also said, don't tell me you're a Democrat, but you're kind of disappointed right now, so you're not doing anything. Now is the time to get in there and do something. Now, of course, he's doing this at a fundraiser, so he's trying to get people to open up their wallets. He adds here, don't say you care deeply about free speech and then you're quiet. No, you stand up for free speech when it's hard. When somebody says something that you don't like, but you still say, you know what, that person has the right to speak. What's needed right now is courage. Okay, I'll give him that. I will absolutely give him that line. But boy, he better start being the guy to lead the way on some of this stuff. Because you have not heard a lot from him on any of the major issues this year where he has actually called out his own party publicly. It's nice to do it at a fundraiser where all I can do is read the quotes. There's no video. There's no audio. There's no any of that. He says, stop looking for the quick fix. Stop looking for the Messiah. He says, you have great candidates running races right now. Support those candidates. Well, I would like to see him put his money where his mouth is. And a great place to start would be, let's say, in that New York City mayor's race, where they've got a self-described socialist who is right now leading ahead of their general election in this race coming up this year in New York City, right? This guy, Mamdani, that the whole world's talking about. We haven't spent a lot of time on it because it's really irrelevant to us in Kansas City, except for the fact that for many people, it should make them say, boy, I guess it could be a lot worse than Quentin Lucas. And yes, it could. Look at New York. Okay? Could be a lot worse. But Barack Obama should go to a place like New York City and campaign against Mamdani. If he's saying the party's got to buckle up, it's got to accept free speech, it's got to push back on some of the crazy, it's got to find people who can actually win some of these races, and basically he's saying in a roundabout way, come back to the middle a little bit. And if Obama's saying that, then that's telling you something. Then he should be the guy who leads the way. He should be the guy who puts his money where his mouth is.
You're right. It's easy to get up there and say that in front of the simps.
Yeah, exactly.
Abuse us. He's talking about me.
Yep.
At $500 a plate or whatever it was.
Yeah, 500, $5 grand,
whatever.
Yeah,
right. They're all paying to be abused and loving it there. Why don't you come on out to the real world here?
The regular folks. That's right. And he did also say this, and this may have been his best line. Barack Obama talking to a bunch of donors over the weekend. He says here, I don't care how much you love working people. They can't afford a house because all the rules in your state make it prohibitive to build. And zoning prevents multifamily structures because of NIMBY. That's the Not in My Backyard acronym. Viewed by residents who oppose development in their neighborhoods. I don't want to know your ideology because you can't build anything. It does not matter. Now, there is some of that in urban communities, in suburban communities, and in rural communities. Obama takes a different approach on this, basically saying we need a bunch of multifamily structures. My opinion and my approach would be we need more single-family homes to get down the price of single-family homes because that's where the demand is right now, and that's why, frankly, a lot of people feel just totally out of luck when it comes to even buying a single-family home. That is the ticket to middle-class success and, frankly, wealth in America, owning your home. And too many people can't do it. So Obama's approach, of course, is always off because he's thinking about multifamily. But he's right to point out that people largely can't afford a house because developers don't want to build houses because the states make it prohibitive to build because of red tape. So I'll give him credit on that line, even though, of course, his solution to it is, as always, or usually, way off. So I know some of you are like dying to get into this Ted Lasso show that they are going to be filming here in the Kansas City area, but be careful, okay? If it's too good to be true, it might be true. Local media, television media had this. KCTV5 did a good piece, investigation, whatever you want to call it, on this company that appears to be potentially scamming people, offering talent services to connect people to casting for the new season of Ted Lasso that is being filmed here in the Kansas City area. And I'll play some of the KCTV5 package here. And then as Mark gets set to apply, he's already applied. He's, going to be a big star. Hopefully he will remember us little people when, he's yucking it up on Ted Lasso and the whole deal. But here's what KCTV5 reported last night. 99's
website says they are an entertainment and marketing company that provides paid and non-paid opportunities, exposure, and knowledge development. They appear to charge a membership fee because their site says talent can pause or cancel their 99 membership at any time.
Thank you for calling 99. All of our agents are currently assisting other callers.
We called 99's phone number and left a voicemail, but haven't received a return call. Someone who responded to the 99 Facebook post showed us text replies, 7 in total over the course of several days, reminding her to sign up for a, quote, virtual open call.
So basically they're trying to get you to sign up for their services with the promise of them connecting you as a stand-in or a fill-in or whatever it might be for the show. But there's enough evidence out there to suggest that it might be a scam. So, Mark, I guess you know people who have fallen for this scam already as they try to get on the big TV show here in Kansas City?
Yeah, I have a friend. She does casting, and she's done stuff with big networks. And so she was just trying to help friends out. Hey, if you want to click on this. And she then tried it herself and realized, you know what, that's not actually it. So she's like, don't do that. Go to another form.
Ooh, okay. So when you applied and you sent in your mugshot, your headshot.
Yeah.
And, your information, you sent it to the right website, correct?
Yeah, I went through the KCTV5 Fox 4 link. They had one that you could apply for through there. And it was a KC Untitled series. I still don't know what it is.
Yes. You don't know what it is. Okay. All right, you haven't given anybody your credit card number or anything, right?
No, I would have been out. I'm not giving anybody money to try to sign up to maybe be on something.
To make how much money a day, right?
150, yeah.
100. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's decent work, I guess, decent pay for what the work is as a stand-in on a TV show, but it's not changing anyone's life. Let's be honest here. It's not, John.
So as I kind of read through the story, some initial calls came out in June, and those were a little more legit than the ones that are rolling out now suddenly, apparently.
Yeah. This 99 company is the one that people are starting to flag and say this is a group that's potentially pulling off some type of a scam against people.
Well, you can cancel it anytime, of course. I'm sorry, all of our operators are busy. You can't cancel it this time.
Can't cancel, no way to cancel, you're totally screwed. That's right. But you might be a stand-in for $150 for an 8-hour day. Let's remember that, too.
Yeah, you'd be standing there with your phone in your hand.
Yeah, it's not like this is a 1-hour, 2-hour commitment. Like $150 a day, but it's an 8-hour day. It's not as great as they might chalk it up to be.
One of the worst things I ever did is shoot a TV commercial. Boring. Wait a minute, the cloud. Hang on. We got the guy with the little light thing holding it up. Like, okay, all right, don't move. Nope, the cloud. All right, take a minute.
You filmed a commercial?
We did one for our first radio station I worked at here in town, so we shot our own commercial.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, yeah, going out on location, and we had a prop that kept falling apart. It was funny as heck. Here, hold it over here, and then grab it here.
That is the most radio story ever.
Yeah.
Let's try to do a TV commercial and look cool and do it on a shoestring budget, and it ends up looking like crap and makes radio look like crap.
Well, it was a local angle message, but,
Seriously, though, I mean, I see some of the radio commercials. We've done a couple with KCTV5, and I'll only let it on if it looks really well done and professional, and we've had professionals do it. But I see some of these other radio groups in Kansas City. I mean, there was a country show that I saw probably a year or two ago do a commercial in this town. And it was the most rinky-dink you-know-what I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, how do you put your face to this? It's bad enough. We're radio people for a reason. There's a reason no one wants to look at us. But you put your face to this, and then you put production quality that comes out of Olathe South from the 6th grade TV development team? What is this? This is embarrassing. So, oh boy, that's a total sidebar on this whole deal. But be careful if you want to be a stand-in for Ted Lasso. That's the message here on KCMO Talk Radio. It's not good.
Yeah, I got an email yesterday that they'll be having some preliminary schedules put out today.
So is that right?
I might know more very soon. And they sent this email, and they're like, hey, we know some of you haven't been stand-ins before, so we got a little video to prep you for it.
Oh, really? Are you getting butterflies, Mark?
I'm getting a little nervous now.
Yeah? It's going to be a big time for you, man.
Do you want to hear what it sounds like?
Sure. Yeah, let's roll the tape.
Second team. That refers to stand-ins for principal actors on a film and television set. On professional film sets, our principal actors will each have a stand-in with approximately the same height, skin tone, and, hair color. Our stand-ins are strictly there to watch the actors rehearse a scene with the director, so that after rehearsal, our actors can pop on out, get last-minute touch-ups done for hair and makeup, potentially step into their costume, and now it's the stand-in's job. And their job is to step in and reenact the scene perfectly, so that way our grips, electric, and even our camera team can make any adjustments, whether it be to the lighting or to the camera itself. Now, this takes time, so that's why productions hire stand-ins, so that while our crew is setting up lights, camera, and getting ready to roll, and our principal actors are stepping into their costumes, everything can be fine-tuned. So, what do you need to do to become a stand-in? When we cast stand-ins here at Alicia Hardigan Casting, we're looking for people who match our actors as closely as possible.
Yeah, I couldn't listen to that video without thinking about, it sounds very similar to the voiceover and the music that you get in DEI videos in corporate America.
Oh, yeah, it looks like that.
I mean, that's my brain for the last 30 seconds was like, is this what you said it was, Mark, or am I tricked into listening to a DEI video? Because that's exactly where my brain went.
Training videos in general have that. Boy, people are just right from central casting for the looks they want.
They are.
They don't have to pay for music rights. It's the generic.
Oh, my gosh. Woof.
Although I'm noticing no overweight people in our training videos. I think there's something there.
It might be. Oh, that brought back some bad memories.